Hi all, this is problem 4-16 explained. This is a little more complicated than I anticipated when I assigned it, but now that I'm looking at it, I thought maybe you would like an explanation. So if you look at problem 4-16, what you can see here in my spreadsheet is all of the costs that have been given. So this is just a copy from the problem. There was a cost of some subcontracted work, which is known as direct materials. $90,000, direct staff costs, otherwise known as direct labor, $200,000. This is the manufacturing overhead, and that's the total cost of the work completed thus far, otherwise known as cost of goods manufactured. So we've been dealing a lot with the manufacturing world. This is just a transition to the service company. So the requirement one asked us to figure out predetermined overhead rate. So to figure out the predetermined overhead rate, I also call this POHR. In case you ever see my shortcuts. So this would just be the studio overhead. You can see I did a little color coordination for you here. Here's my studio overhead, and because the activity base or the cost driver is the direct staff cost, they told us that. There's the $200,000. So now I'm just going to copy these down. So this is just simply the 320, and this is divided by 200,000. And then if I take this and divide it by this, I get 1.6. Of course, this, if I turned it into a percentage, would help. Okay? So that's 160%. That's how they determine it. So this, another way to say this is that for every direct staff cost there's 160% of overhead, because the direct staff costs are really what drive the actual variable manufacturing overhead costs. Okay, so then requirement 2, this is where things get interesting. It says complete the following job cost sheet for partially completed Krimmer Corporation headquarters. Okay, and they give us a hint. They say cost of goods manufactured equals beginning WIP plus manufacturing costs incurred less ending work in process inventory. Okay, but they don't give us that. So I've scooted on down. So this is actually what they're looking for right here, is all this really good information. They want to know the cost of the contracted work, direct staff costs, studio overhead, and the total cost. So here, because we know the 160%, we can start to fill this in. The direct staff costs were given to us in the problem. Somewhere it says at the end of January, only one job was still in process, and it's been charged with $13,500 in direct staff costs. So I just took that down here. How did I get this? Well, I took this amount times 160% to come up with this. So I still don't know how much direct, this is considered the cost of the subcontracted work, otherwise known as the direct materials in the manufacturing world. So I broke that down into a couple of steps. So first step is that we need to determine the total manufacturing costs during the month. So if you follow my creative little color coding here, you can see I need to take the cost of the subcontracted work. So I'm literally just going to copy these figures down, right, like so. And there we go. All right. And my direct staff costs were 200,000. So this is nothing more than just the adding part. Okay. You may be confused as to why this is happening, but I think you'll get it in the end. And so then I'm just going to total all these up, and it's going to equal $610,000. Okay, great. So now that I know that, I can start to back myself into other things. So what I need to do, so that's my total manufacturing cost. So those are actually going to go down here, because if we remember the cost of goods manufactured, paste the value. Okay, thank you. All right, so the cost of goods manufactured was actually given to us, wasn't it? The cost of completing $570,000. That's the total manufacturing cost. This is the cost of the goods completed, which was this number back up over in here, which was given to me. Okay, so that's down over here. I have figured out right up here what my total manufacturing costs are. So those are 610. So I'm just going to plug that right in here. So they said in the problem there was no beginning work in process, so I simply add the total manufacturing costs that were given to, that we added up over here, and we just need to figure out what our ending work in process is. So how do we read this? Really what we want to do is, this is what we started with, this is what is in process, this is what is still in process, meaning this is really what moved out. Okay, so I hope that, so we have beginning plus what was added in less what was taken out gives us our, let me say that a different way. The beginning work in process plus what was added in less what was added out is now our cost of goods manufactured. Okay, all right, so now that we know all of that, now we can find our missing link. So if we solve for x, we basically have 0. I'm doing that on my calculator. 0 plus 610,000 minus 570 gives us $40,000, right? So that's really what x is. That's how much we have still left in our ending inventory, which is the total cost of what the criminal corporation project is. So now we can basically finish our equation, but this is a little bit tricky. This whole question is a little bit tricky. Now we can see our total costs are $40,000. So now the subcontracted work, do you see how we solve for that? That's the total cost. So I'm going to take $40,000, and to get to that, because that's my total, right? I'm going to basically take that and subtract the 21,600 and subtract the 13,500, and this brings me to the cost of the subcontracted work of $4,900. Okay, now if this was a little confusing, it was a little confusing to me too. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to ask you a question quite this complicated on the exam, but this is a really good example of how things might apply to a service company.